Welcome to Ready Set Exec, the podcast where we sit down with executives across North America to unpack their business, leadership, and expertise.
And every other week, join us for Market Watch, all things hiring, real insights and no fluff. Hey everyone, I'm here with Albert Butler, CPA, MBA, and author. He's the resident partner in charge for a national accounting firm where he merges technical excellence with purpose-driven leadership. With over 25 years in public accounting and private industry, he advances the profession through mentorship, innovation, and advocacy, advising and proving that accounting is the heartbeat of the business and the key to personal financial success. Albert represents the modern CPA that is strategic, ethical, and impact-driven, and at the forefront of mapping out a blueprint for the next era of the profession. Nice to see you, Albert. Thanks for joining the show.
John, it's amazing. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited that I got the invite to come and join you today. I'm hoping that my message can resonate with your listeners, while at the same time, you and I can just have a great conversation. We can kind of help everybody out in the process.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you think accounting, I think of, bean counters and just, boring kind of work and whatnot. And then after talking to you a little bit and learning let's just start off with maybe the money tree in terms of the cycle of money. I think a lot of people, even in small business, don't really know how finance and money works. And if they have maybe a good idea to start a business, they start it off and then they're like, oh, I have to finance all this and
right.
I need to find money and I may have to get involved with a PE firm or VC firm or the bank. And so maybe tell us a little bit about the process cycle of money, from a layman's standpoint that, you have an idea to start a business, but you're like, how do I go about this?
John, that's a powerful question. And I think it resonates right back into why I constantly preach accounting is the heartbeat of business and the key to personal finance success. And truly, as a CPA, and I've been doing this for so long, I take entrepreneurs who have an idea, who have a innovation that they want to bring to market, but they have no idea how to account for it. They have no idea how to manufacture or how to operations work. They have questions about sales, questions about human capital, and questions along the line even with IT. And it all comes back down to how money kind of really funnels through it all. Our money system is truly a promissory note. If you ever read the dollar bill, it says this is a note, which means it's a promise that as a collective group, we have agreed that this is worth something. So since we agreed that it's worth something, we're going to try to use it to barter back and forth for resources. Well, what if we remove that bartering piece out of it? What if we remove the note piece out of it? We would just be exchanging a good for a service on a continual basis. So money is that I call the medium that brings it all together for us all. So if it's the medium, if you don't have it, how do you raise it? How do you get it? What are you going to do to sit back and tell the world how great you are? And that's where I come in at. I help entrepreneurs take their message, take their vision, take their idea, and work down a pattern to allow the numbers to tell the story. So how did that start? Well, it starts by one, how do your personal finances work for you? What are your actual habits in that world first? Because if you don't have good habits personally, how can you possibly have good habits professionally? So we work that out. The way we work it out is actually look at your taxing situation. How are you being taxed? How do you understand the way the tax in the U.S. actually works? I tell people all the time, it is a understanding of earned income versus portfolio income versus passive income. What bucket do you actually sit in and how your money's being generated from a personal perspective first? Then we can start talking about the business, because the business falls into the portfolio for you. That is a major asset that you're going to drive and be able to grow and develop and cultivate to help with your overall legacy. So how is that going to be taxed? How are you going to manage that? So I take clients through from a soup to nuts approach to understand how that actual cycle of being able to raise money is going to work for you, because my job is to give you clean, reliable financial statements. And in giving you those clean, reliable financial statements, you can actually go to an angel investor. you can actually have a plan to grow your business and have your EBITDA at a space where a PE firm might actually want to acquire, work with you, and then help build you up to spin you off one day. That's the true golden parachute that we all try to look for. So not only is accounting the heartbeat of business, the money cycle along the way is that it's almost the blood for that heartbeat, because you want to tell the story through numbers the right way, and you don't want your story to be narrated by someone else. You want to be able to do it and have control of it, and that's where a good, strong CPA comes in at.
Yeah, I guess we often forget that your financial statements for your business are almost like your resume, right?
100%. Yes.
And it's interesting how you bring up that you check the personal finances of the owners, because to me that it's like, oh, it's, past this prologue. It makes sense. If you're at home, you're spending money foolishly. How can you be trusted to run a multi-million-dollar business? That's an interesting sort of concept of teaching good habits to founders, so that not only do they manage it in their personal life, but they bring that to work, and then being able to fix up your finances and so on. So what do you mean by a CEO needs to have a CFO mindset?
It's all connected, John. If you think about it, that CEO is that visionary. That CEO is the person who's coming up with the mission for the new organization. That CEO is that entrepreneur who has that idea that wants to take it to market. So if you have that idea, you got to build your team. I call it almost as like the 5 muscles that you have to be able to work to be that proper CEO. Muscle number 1 is leadership. Number 2, operations. Number 3, sales. Number 4, IT. And number 5, accounting, that heartbeat of it all. So as a CEO, I'm going to deliver a message to my support team of telling them, hey, you know what? We want to make pens. We want to make new tablets. And being able to do that, I have to be able to know how much those tablets are going to cost. What are the material that's going to go into it? I have to deliver that down to the production department that's going to be able to put all that together, my operations person. Well, guess what had to go first? It had to go through the accounting department. It had to tell you have to make sure that cost equation is delivered in a way through the accounting department, so the accounting can tell them, hey guys, it's going to cost X amount to be able to make one particular tablet. Well, production is going to say, hey, we made that tablet, and they're going to send it right back up. Guess where it's going? Back to the accounting department. Accounting is going to say, hey, we have something that we can actually sell. That's going over to the sales department. Sales is going to sell it. Sales is going to come back and say, hey, we sold it. It's going to come back to the accounting department and then go right back up to that CEO. And the CEO is going to have a set of financial statements to understand what do we actually do and how do we actually produce. And now we can actually tell the world. Now we can actually forecast. Now we can actually budget. So all of that comes right back down to that CEO having that CFO mindset to understand how important the heartbeat, accounting, really is for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it in terms of, the devil's in the details, especially in low margin industries where, every percent counts, right?
That's right.
And I mean, we saw that recently in supply chain where a lot of businesses that were, low margin and whatnot, tariffs can affect their margins quite a bit. So there's a lot of things to be mindful of, let's say, when you're making those decisions. But for someone that doesn't have an accounting background, this can be kind of scary. Not everyone's a CPA and understands. I mean, I think as a CEO or as a founder, you need to be able to read a balance sheet and understand how that works and general accounting principles. You need to have that. I think taking some business courses or taking some accounting courses are helpful. I went to business school, so I got quite a bit of accounting. Not enough to have my CPA, but a good amount. So
right.
I think it's important for any business owner to have, let's say, at least the basics down, right? So that when they are talking to their accounting department, they, know what's going on and they understand the cash flow, EBITDA, being able to read the statements and forecast, I think is huge, or work with them to forecast at least if they're going to be doing it for you. But what do you think is some of the major problems? Like when you're talking to your clients, like small businesses coming in, they're doing $1 million, $2 million, they're starting to hire people up. What is sort of the major issues you're seeing with their financial statements? Like what are common problems? You're like, okay, these are the 3 things I see almost all the time,
Dare I say, John, that the financial statements don't exist?
It's a pattern, right?
It's a pattern. It's a clear pattern. And It's unfortunate because it's kind of an afterthought. And it's that oh no moment that I didn't have this information when I really, really needed it. And then you come running and trying to get an answer that can serve you well. I would tell you that some of the biggest problems that I truly see is that you don't build your team to begin with. You don't have an idea of what really to be able to scale, to get the right people in the right place at the right time. Now, I'm not saying an individual should go out and spend a whole bunch of money on trying to administratively create something. I say, hey, you know what? You got an idea. Let's go see if that idea works. Let's go see if that product does a market even want that product. Let's see that first. Do you have proof of concept? Do you have what they call the MVP, your minimum valuable product that you can actually put out there and see if the market wants it? But the market wants it. Oh, it's go time. It's time to make sure you have already lined up the proper team in place for the stuff that you don't know. And the most intelligent CEOs are those that know what they don't know and are very comfortable with saying that and hiring individuals to build the team around them that's smarter than them in those areas that they don't know. I mentioned earlier about the 5 muscles, and you're so right. Every entrepreneur, every person who wants to really get in business should have the core foundation of business skills. But nobody's ever going to tell you that you need to know it all. And I don't recommend trying to know it all because you can't do it all. Yeah. A big issue that I also see is that person that wants to try to do it all. They try to wear all the hats. They don't want to invest in what they're trying to grow. So they're trying to they want to wear the CEO hat. They want to make all the decisions. They want to wear the CFO hat. They want to do all the accounting, supposedly. They want to wear the IT hat when that's completely a whole different mindset. They want to wear the sales hat. But sales is very difficult. Very, very difficult. You got to have that person that has that skill set in place, and they want to wear the operations hat. And this organizational operations are trying to make sure things are timed perfectly to make sure our products and services are being properly prepared and ready for market. The biggest issue that I see, honestly, you're wearing too many hats and trying to build that team the right way.
No, we see that in the recruiting side as well, where, we're working with a lot of small businesses, 10, 20, 50 million. They have a bit of a team, but the CEO still loves to be, in everything. It's just it's their baby. They don't want to let go. They're scared of releasing control, right? Maybe scared of trusting people with certain things, and so even though they may even have leadership or they brought in some, let's say, senior people, there's that lack of trust yet, or they're micromanaging a little bit too much, and it really just makes them work crazy hours and creates a bad culture as well. Like when you don't feel trusted in your employment, or you're always being micromanaged. I've never liked that myself, so I totally get that.
No, I try to tell my staff always that I hired you for your professionalism. I hired you for your intellect. I hired you for your creativity, which means I hired you for your diversity as well too. I want to hear your ideas. I expect you to be better than what you were yesterday. I truly need your support in that, because I don't have time to work in the business at that level. I don't want to be in the business at that level. The business has to be able to function and flow by itself without me jumping in to save it or save you. You're a professional. Be a professional. It's okay. Yeah. I have to be a professional by giving those reins up and doing that.
It's easier said than done for a lot of people, and it takes time. But I think it's something that people need to be aware of. And it's something else you brought up earlier too was, as an owner, founder, being self-reflective, knowing what you know well and what you don't know, and your gaps. Everyone has gaps and blind spots. Being able to at least take the time to reflect on, okay, I'm not so good at this. I'm terrible at this. I really I don't enjoy doing this either. Certain things you don't enjoy. What's the point of running a business if you can't delegate the things you don't enjoy to people that enjoy doing them? Because some people do enjoy doing it, right?
That's right.
So find someone that likes doing it to do that part of the business for you. So that all makes sense. And I think that's something, even besides accounting, is a good approach for people to take in business, right? So,
John, let me give you a quick story, and then we can transition. Give you a quick story. Sure. This is a personal story about me. I recently wrote this book, and I really wanted to get in every piece of writing the book, and I actually wanted to go down the road of, hey, I want to work with publishing the book as well too. And I found really quickly how many gaps I had. from that perspective. Cover art, illustrations, editing, and just overall publishing to market the book content-wise. I'm like, I'm drowning here. I had to hire somebody to help me. I had to reach out to actual cover artists. I had to reach out to illustrator. I needed an editor. I needed somebody who could copyright. I needed that. If I would have held all that stuff in, trying to figure it out myself, I'll still be trying to learn all those disciplines when I'm a CPA. I know accounting. I don't know anything about from that side of the business. So giving out those reins up to professionals who actually do it, who actually love it, who actually like putting content together and marketing it out there has been a godsend for me to realize that I don't know this stuff. Let me go hire some people who do know it. And that's what works, because you need support. We all need support.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your book. How long did it take you to write it, and what's it all about?
Well, the book title is Life. I have it sitting over my shoulder here. Life, Truth, Love, Loss, Success, and Failure. It is a real, I would say, a book of aphorisms, quotes, and advice that I'm writing to my children for their children, based off of things that I've heard, experienced, or made up on my own, or that was given to me by my parents and my grandparents, that I really wanted to have a legacy that I could share with my children. You know, I used to do a lot of international work, and I would travel a lot all over the world. And I was recently married. We had my first son, and then 18 months later, my daughter was coming, and I had to go on a trip to Singapore. And I don't know if you've ever been to Singapore, but that flight is an 18 to 20-hour flight at times. I'm literally flying over the Pacific Ocean, and I doze off. I wake up and I'm thinking to myself, what if something was to happen to me? What if I didn't make it back home? And I have a newborn baby and a son who was only a year and a half old. Who's going to tell them the fatherly advice that my dad was able to tell me, and my granddad and my mom and my grandmom was able to share with me? Who would be there to do that? And leaving it all up to my wife is unfair. So on that flight, I literally started writing down quotes and things that I wanted to just pop in my head to share with them. And the one that just sticks out was, I can because I will because I can. It is a quote that was built through a discussion with my father when he told me that he couldn't do something. And it really shocked me for my hero, my dad, my guy, to say that he couldn't do something. I think I was probably maybe about 23, 24 years old at the time. And he was probably in his late 50s or so. And he said he couldn't do something. And it kind of left a ripple inside of me that, you know, I'm 20 something years old. I can do anything. I can almost, I can take on the world. And that quote came out of that. And I wanted to put that on paper for my kids, that no matter what's happening to them, no matter how hard things get, no matter who tells them that they can't do something, you can because you will. Your willpower is all under your control. So you will because you can. So that's the book. That's what it's all about. I wrote it. It's 17 years in the making, and I wanted to make sure by the time my son was getting ready to graduate from high school, that I had it ready to go to give him as a graduation present. And I was able. He graduated from high school a year and a half ago. And I was able to give him the first rough draft of the book itself, and you know, he was overly appreciative of it. And he gave me a speech dedication when I got ready to launch the book as well too. It was very, very nice. So that's what it's about. Nice. It's reviewing very well. I put it out there. People are really giving some great comments about it. It's 4.8 right now on Amazon from a ranking perspective. So I think it's good because I'm biased because I wrote it. But
yeah, we'll definitely link it in the comments there.
I appreciate it.
But no, you know, here I am thinking, oh, he's going to write an accounting book or something, and no. What a nice story. But you know what? Like, leaving a legacy behind, I think that's something people don't think about until they start to get older, and they, you realize that you are human. You know, you realize that we have limited time on this earth, and being able to leave stuff behind for our family. So it's a success in the sense that whether you sell 1 million copies or not, it's more of, you know, did you do what you wanted to accomplish, was leave something behind for your kids, and and it looks like they did, and they appreciate it, right? So
100%, 100%.
so that's
That is interesting. You say that you would think that it'd be an accounting book. Well, it is and it's not. It is and it's not, because it's a purpose book. And because it's my experiences that I'm writing through that, of course, there's a lot of accounting talk inside of it, but it's really finding your purpose, finding your true why. It's built into a family value system that walks you through the process of challenging situations that came up in my life and how I dealt with them, and quotes to live by to continue to push forward. So it's an accounting book to a point, but it's a life book. It's everything that can happen inside a person's life to keep them motivated and keep them going. And there's a bonus chapter in there that talks about money and the money cycle. So it's in there.
I mean, that's advice that we have to give our kids, because if you think about it, at school, they don't teach financial literacy, right? Budgeting, how to manage your money, how to save. I think I learned all about, saving from reading, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's one of the first books I read when I was in college, like 18, 19. I read that book, and trying to understand, like, how does all this, this business world works? Because I was getting into business school, and I was like, I gotta figure out how these guys are making money, because I want to make money and money motivated and all that. But they don't teach that stuff in school. They don't prepare you for the real world in many aspects. I'd say a few other things as well that they probably should be teaching that they're not. One of the things you brought up that was kind of interesting was, your faith and the values you bring. How do you bring your values to work, and how do you sort of circle? So the thing is, at work, we're also trying to be, in a corporate environment, we can't be overly religious and whatnot, but you can still bring your faith and your values to work, right? And so how do you manage that for yourself?
It's interesting, John, that the connection that you just made about what's taught in school or not taught in school also leans back to your overall faith, not just in a supernatural power, but also your faith in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's needed to be taught at home. As we're talking with our parents and grandparents and loved ones, I'm a big believer that I tell people, my job is the job. My career is my family. So because that's the case, I'm bringing me to the office space to have those types of transparency of how I move and how I work, and my work ethic of how I see things. So I can say that accounting is the heartbeat of business, because I've seen how that actually comes together through the work how I work with clients. If I'm honorable to my clients and my staff see me being honorable to them, I'm in a people business in that regard, because my clients are people, my staff are people. So we all have to have a people mindset of taking care of each other. So that level of faith of who you are as a person comes from the value system that you have been built inside of you. You make a very good point too. Like, hey, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, great book, by the way. But that book's really talking about family. When you really step back from it, it's talking about the family value system. I had one dad who saw things this way. I had a neighbor's dad who saw things this way. And I got a chance to spend time with both of them to see their perspective. It's talking about family. It's talking about having those conversations with your father. It's talking about life. So I'm a big believer in, you bring your true self everywhere you go. And just like I had a friend of mine tell me, just like you wouldn't shout and scream at your coworkers, you probably shouldn't be shouting and screaming at your kids and your family either. And govern yourself accordingly along both directions of that. So if I'm going to have a level of discipline that I'm going to apply at home, I'm going to apply that same discipline as I carry myself at work too. And that's part of this, your overall makeup of who you really are as a person and your character.
Yeah, and it's funny because, we always hear about, corporate machinations and how people are acting in corporate. But, I think capitalism often makes us do things that can go against our values. And it's kind of hard for many people to work in a system like that sometimes, because of some of the hard choices you have to make in the business world, right? You always say, oh, it's just business, right? But there's still things you can do to treat people well with what you're doing. So for example, with a layoff, right? There's two ways to do the layoff. You can be like that one CEO, get on Zoom and announce it to people, right?
Right.
Or you can find ways to, offer exit packages and offer ways for transitioning support and do it in a more human way. And, there's a lot of things you can do. So even though that things may have to happen because of, your fiduciary responsibility, that's an account, your accounting
That's
terms
right.
there and legal terms. But, you have to make sure that people are treated like people, not just human capital and numbers on a spreadsheet. So
Right.
I totally get that from a sense of being a people first leader and being people centric in everything we do. And you can bring your values to how you do that, right? Every day. So
it's tough, John, because everybody's not built the same way.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't get the guidance and the leadership that you and I might have received when we were coming up or have around you right now.
Yeah.
So because that's the case, I try my best to always lead by that example, but be transparent in that example as well too. This country was built on small business. Without small business, this country really doesn't.
Yeah.
And having that entrepreneurial mindset, everybody does not want to be the boss, but everybody needs to make sure they're carrying their self that way. So I'm going to go back to my original comment. Accounting is the heartbeat of business, yes, but it's also the key to personal finance success. So being your own CEO, being your own CFO, being your own operational chief, being your own IT person, and really looking at your own financial situation first. That's why I bring people in. We talk about personal finance first, understanding your true why first. Before you say, hey, I'm going to go and take out loans and I'm going to go try to get an investor to come in and try to start this business. How can you do that unless you're built right? So that's across the board with your staff as well too. How can they be truly their best selves if they're not built right? These are conversations that should be had to make sure that people are building their toolkit on a regular basis to be able to expand and grow. I train my staff to take my job one day. Why? Because hopefully they're pushing me while I pull them along the way. My level of greatness can only be built on the support that I have. And I need my staff to one day be able to say, hey, you know what, Albert, you can retire. We got this now. This business still runs and it's efficient and it's a moving machine without you. So I believe in that. So you don't have to worry about come in, hey guys, the entity itself is not functioning well no more. And we need to do some layoffs. Because the people that should be on your staff are building themselves up and be in position to say, hey, you know what? We can continue to move on, even if it's not with you, even if I need to go somewhere else, or even if I need to start my own business. And that's the real, I don't want to say carrot, but it's a real opportunity that's available to everyone when you decide you want to be built in a way to truly grow.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think if you have people also that see that you care about them and that you're working towards bettering them as well, then you build that loyalty to the business as well with your team. It improves retention. There's all sorts of things that it helps with, right? I mean, they're definitely going to work harder for you if they feel that you care about them, right?
That's right.
So I get that. I think when we talk to executives every day in recruitment, I mean, the people that want to leave, it's usually two things, it's like bad culture or bad manager. And usually the manager, like having the bad manager is probably the deciding factor. If they tell me they have an asshole boss, it doesn't matter how much you pay them. They want to leave.
They want out.
Yeah, it's because they know they're dealing with this person all the time, right? And so if you have to deal with someone you really hate and they're just terrible to you, then it's like, why do you bother? Money can't make that
Money
better.
Money won't make it better. That's right.
No.
It's a tried and true statement as well, too. People don't quit companies. They quit bosses. That's a real powerful statement.
But, for someone listening here, that what would you say is some best practices in terms of personal finance? Because I think that's universal for everyone listening. They can take an examination. Like, what is, a healthy personal financial lookup of someone, or what should you be striving towards? Like, I remember, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad, he was saying save 15% of your income. I think that was the metric in the book. Yeah. I could be wrong, but there's certain things that you should be doing to obviously, like, don't get in credit card debt and pay 20% interest and consolidate at lower rates. And there's certain things you can do, or just be debt free if you can.
Right.
What are some things you normally tell your clients that are coming in of, like, here's some immediate changes you should make, and these are best practices in terms of, like, managing your personal finance?
I would always tell you, step one is to make sure your taxes are done correctly. Honestly, John, I will tell you that you don't become rich from a job. You become rich in how little you pay for expenses, and taxes are an expense as a citizen of the locale that you're in. And a lot of people do not do their taxes correctly. They leave a lot of opportunity on the table. So that's number one. Your actual financial prudency of ensuring your taxes are done correctly. Can you do that on your own? Yes. Should you do that on your own? No. You should have a professional that you work with to make sure that your taxes are done correctly. So I highly recommend that as number one. Number two, understanding, like I mentioned before, how you're being taxed. Do you have earned income? Do you have portfolio income? Or do you have passive income? Each of those are taxed, well, differently. Earned definitely is taxed differently. Portfolio and passive are taxed the same. So you want to make sure that you can move more of your money into a portfolio space. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means you should buy assets. Stop buying just stuff that automatically depreciates when you buy it. Buy assets, buy businesses, buy stocks, bonds, gold, natural, buy works of art, real estate. Buy these things that appreciate with inflation as compared to buying things that not only are depreciate relatively fast, but don't have any gained value through inflation. So that's the biggest thing. If you really want to actually grow and develop, stop wasting your money on frivolous things. Stop and make sure your taxes are done correctly. Buy assets, and if an asset 100% can it make money for you without you? That's 100%. Yeah. And if it can't do that, it's a liability. And that's a mindset shift that a lot of people struggle with a lot, because people like to have things, they like to do stuff. But if you're not in a position to, one, make sure your taxes are done correctly, and two, that you're buying assets to be able to do those things, you might want to rethink how you spend your money. I could give you the whole diatribe of the 50-30-20 plan. Yes, it works. It's great. Of hey, 50% on needs, 30% on wants, and 20% you invest and save. That's fine. We can talk about a zero-based budget where every dollar is working for you. All that's fine and dandy. But until you have a solid mindset shift on stop wasting your money on frivolous things, none of that stuff works, because bad habits are just that. They're bad habits. They're going to work their way right back into you. Here's the flip. Good habits do the exact same thing. So if you're thinking this is what you want and you start saying this is what you want, all of a sudden your actions are going to dictate how you move, which is going to turn into an overall habit for you. And those habits are going to mold you into a different type of person, which is going to be your character. So, you can make a lot of money and still waste it, and you can be the richest person that you think you are. I've seen individuals that have over $1 million, $2 million on their tax return, and I'm like, why do you do it? Why are you being taxed this way when it's all earned income? You need to make sure that you are working with a professional from a tax strategy perspective to make sure you're buying assets with that money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also tax rates depending on what kind of income bucket it comes into, right? So
yes,
being able to shift things into lower tax brackets, or paying yourself at a consistent rate year over year, so you're staying in the same tax bracket rather than jumping up and down, paying more overall tax on average. There's certain things I've looked at before that are kind of important. So I get that. But as you said, it is a mindset shift, because I think for a lot of people now, they get caught up in, sort of the keeping up with the Joneses. The amount of marketing that's coming towards us for products like on Instagram, I've gotten sucked in sometime with some of those purchases, those impulse buys. But
That's right.
in general, there's just so much things now to buy. There's so much choice. There's so many products and we're sort of really been pushed to become consumers, right? Big mistake is going to Costco. You go in there expecting to spend $200, you spend $5.
Easy.
So many good
Easy.
deals. I know
Right.
it's hard. It's hard.
It's funny you bring the Costco comment
Yeah.
up. My wife and I were in Costco, and I'm sitting there thinking, every time you pick up something, that's 10, 15, 20 bucks for one item. Every single time you pick up something, I'm like, how do we spend so much money? And you realize that you got, 15 to 20 items. Well, that's fine. That's 10, 15, 20 bucks per item. And that number just adds up extremely quick. So you're right. Don't be mindful of that type of budgeting as well, too. When you go into those stores, there's so much noise. John, it's so much noise right now. You go on social media, you're going to be hit in so many different directions. Look at me, buy me. And it's all over the place, that if you don't have a discernment about how you move and how you spend your money, you're right. You'll run those bills up really, really quickly.
I think it also comes down to discipline, though, right? I mean, it's just like junk food and candy at Halloween, which we just had.
Right.
Having the discipline to control your intake or your consumption. I think that's something that we often overlook, maybe in business, is like, having discipline goes across multiple things, from your work ethic to your spend to just your day-to-day, what you're doing, being consistent with what you're doing. So
that's right.
These values apply not only in accounting, but day-to-day in your personal life and everything. It's like building those foundation of, let's say, personal values. And we talked about this before. I think not everybody, and I can speak from this from a personal perspective, one of the hardest things for me growing up was realizing that everybody around me, and not to say that I was raised like the best way in the world, but I think I was raised really well by my parents, and realizing that not everyone around me was raised the same way.
That's right.
And that was a hard lesson to learn, being naive young kid, where everyone came from a different family and so on. Luckily enough, I grew up with a great group of friends in my neighborhood that we're all immigrant families, immigrant parents that were really strict, study and work hard. So we all had those shared values with me and my friends. So we grew up with each other that way, but not everybody has that kind of support system, right? Where you're going to hear the same message from your friends' families and so on, and now raising my own kids, I see that with some of the other parents raising, my and having a screen of like, who are these friends and who are the families, like,
that's right.
Because it's something you don't think about maybe initially, and then you're like, oh wait, who are these people coming into the circle of our children and influencing them,
Keyword is influencing them, because again, it goes back to the noise. And with so much access, John, I'll tell you, think about it. When you just mentioned a second ago, you had a good solid group of friends when you were coming up. Our kids these days, their friends are all online on a consistent basis. They don't hang out and play and do things like we might have did, especially like I did. I know my kids they'll spend time and they're talking to, having a whole conversation. They're just online. Like, when's the last time you seen that person? We don't see each other at all. So it's interesting, because there's a major shift from that perspective as well too, which is why that strong family value system is needed more so than ever. We're more connected today than what we've ever been since mankind even started. But it's almost like we're so connected, we're disconnected, because having that touch, having that walk, having that talk, having that personal interaction doesn't happen like it used to. It doesn't happen.
Well, I've seen it from just the socialization, right? I think we all saw that during COVID, where the isolation really affected people. Like, I know it took me a couple of years after COVID to feel normal again, just from a social perspective of like going out and doing stuff. Like, now things are normal. We're going out, comedy shows, all this kind of thing. But back then you're so isolated. And then seeing the kids going through high school, or going through middle school during COVID, and that because they had that for 3-4 years, they've kind of stayed in that mindset, I think, to some extent, where
Right.
Stay home. I know a lot of people still ordering Uber Eats instead of going out because they've gotten used to doing that as a behavior, right?
That's right.
So you're right about we're all connected. We all have these social media platforms we can all talk to, but human connection is something that is, I think, something you got to really intentionally do,
That's
because
right.
it's so easy to fall back to I'm just going to text them. I'm just going to, message them. And for the young kids too, like, it's funny. I'll see my daughter and her friends, and they'll be like messaging each other. My daughter's 14, and it's a hard thing because on one end, if you don't allow them to have the platform, they're going to be ostracized from all the school friends because everyone's on it. But at the same time, is like teaching them you can have it and you can talk to them, but you have to sort of screen who's on there. You got to be mindful about all that and limit the use and all those kinds of things, right? But these kids now will just text each other all day. They won't call each other. They won't hang out face to face as much. I'm used to, I'm an 80s kid used to being out. Oh, come back when the sun goes down. When the street lights come on,
When
come
street
back
lights
home
come
for
on.
dinner.
That's right.
And we were out running the streets together, playing and doing sports and all sorts of things. And then the street lights come on, go home and do your homework and eat. And it was a simpler time.
Yes.
I think a better time, though, at the same time, from seeing what it is now. I think it was a better time in many ways.
I don't want to be biased, but I agree with you that it to me
The
just
80s and 90s were the best. I mean, come on.
They were the best. They were the best.
Yeah.
Getting out on a Saturday morning and just going. You're just having a great time, just going, having fun. And now it's interesting the way things are developing. I don't know if it's something that we can either revert back or pull back to, or I just think that from a parent perspective, our jobs have evolved as well too, from a parenting perspective. We need to make sure, to your point, we need to make sure that we're monitoring what our kids are doing, how they're doing, when they're doing it, because there's so much more access of so many experiences that you can have online that you could have never had when we were younger. So that's another one.
I think though, taking this back to business too, though, I think being intentional about doing things in person, doing things on video, there's things you can do to maintain more interaction with your clients, right? And so I see that's how we're sort of doing that as a people first approach with our recruitment, for example. Like we're on video with everybody. We're talking to everyone on video. We try to do face-to-face meetings when possible, rather than just sending emails or a text message or a phone call even. It's more personable, at least if you're face-to-face with people. And so it's like we all have to be intentional about more social interaction, not allowing technology to distance us or isolate us from each other. And same thing with your team, right? You have a Slack channel at work. You can talk to people at work, but better to jump on a Zoom with them and see them face to face and talk. And it's just that human interaction, that the vibes that you get from, that face to face, which is so important because we're social beings, right?
That's right. We're social people. I'll give you a quick example as well too. I mentioned earlier, when we were talking, I do client service. So a very personable thing to do is for me to get out of my office, get in my car and go drive over to the client and have a face-to-face meeting with the client so they can be open to tell you what their real pain points really are. Now, doing over the phone, even doing over Zoom, it's fine. But people become more comfortable and they can actually put their shoulders down and be open to talk. Because for me, I'm like coming to the doctor. And from a financial perspective, you got to tell me everything for me to be able to help you. And normally when you open up and you have that face-to-face conversation, people are more inclined to just relax, open up and tell you what those pain points are, how did they develop, and they can work with you to understand, and you can articulate back to them, how can we go from here to there and work together work with them to give a result that's palatable and reasonably understandable. If you have a large amount of outstanding debt that you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for, if you have a large tax liability you're trying to figure out how to pay for, if you have creditors that are coming at you, or if you're trying to raise capital a certain type of way, a lot of those conversations you feel a lot more comfortable in a face-to-face one-on-one as compared to doing it over the phone or doing it on video. So that's huge in my business. I'm a big believer. I'm gonna come see you, and I think it's best that either I'm going to bring you to my office or I'm coming to your office. We're going to sit down and we're going to have a conversation.
Now, it's interesting you said going to the account is like going to a doctor, because I guess for some people it can be painful to be talking about their finances, especially if they're not in a good shape. They feel embarrassed, or it's you have a business, your business is a source of pride. So if it's not doing well and you're like, oh, we need accounting help and we got to fix some things, then it could be difficult to be open about all the debts, or
That's right.
talk about how bad the cash flows are. Because I mean, I've seen some really bad cash flows from some businesses that are making so much revenue. Top line revenue is good, but then the overhead, they signed a lease for a commercial building that's through the roof. I remember seeing that at one marketing company I was at. They signed like $1 million lease because they wanted to have the nice office. It was so huge. But then I went to the office and it was enough for like probably several hundred people, and it was empty. It was like they had signed the lease thinking they were going to keep growing.
Right.
And they signed like a 10-year lease or something. They were stuck in this lease and it was eating the company apart. Like they were like, instead of making 20% profit, they were down to like 5 or even less. It was eating away at the profitability of the business so much because they had the ego of the owner was to have this nice, huge office, and it cost them. And unfortunately, because of that, it affected everybody at the company because we weren't getting raises. People were suffering. They were putting downward pressure on everybody else to reduce expenses and to help with the EBITDA and so on. But it's like, yeah, but it's the lease. Get rid of the lease, and then you'd be making so much money. You'd be able to give everybody a raise. So. Right. That was a lesson learned early in my career when I worked for this big company. I was doing that, and it was interesting. Just then you wonder, like, why do they do this? But it makes sense.
You said it, John. Ego.
Yeah.
Ego, pride. Those are extreme, deadly sins. Yeah. If you in business, in your personal life. So when I mentioned coming to talk to me is like going to the doctor, you have to leave your ego at the door. You got to leave pride at the door. Do you want to survive? Do you want to grow? Do you want to develop? If you want these things, sometimes it's going to hurt because you're going to have to check your ego at the door and realize that I have to make these certain types of cuts, because if I don't, we're going to go out of business. If I don't make these types of cuts at home, we're going to lose our house, or we're going to be homeless. It's the same correlation. That's the reason why I go back to, I start personally. How do you manage yourself personally? Because that's how you're going to manage the business. And every business, as you know, is its own living, breathing entity that needs to be taken care of inside and out with good, reasonable, logical decisions along the way that can scale the business. And you don't have to worry about making these bad decisions. And if you do make one, because we're not perfect, we're gonna make mistakes. You have to make sure that when you make those mistakes, you can check your ego at the door and really address the problem head on, as compared to trying to cover it up or trying to go around it and trying to find other ways. No, let's hit it. Let's hit the main problem. Let's really see where the rubber meets the road so we can actually deal with this and continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as with a doctor, giving a proper diagnosis, you need all the information, right? So
That's right.
Totally makes sense. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I think it was a great convo, and look forward to checking out your book.
Awesome, John. I'll tell you what, when we can probably talk for hours about so many more things. I appreciate the opportunity. Again, thank you for letting me talk to your audience and come on your platform. And by all means, I'm always available to come and have another conversation again. But so 100%. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.